with the first show of the new month, we like to kind of look back at the previous month, look at the placements. I think that, it's obviously helpful for us to look at internally, but like if you're watching like kind of the why you should care, I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of the stuff that we're doing across our different practices, tech recruiting, go to market recruiting, corporate functions, et cetera. I think a lot of what we see internally is pretty indicative of what the overall market looks like.
100%. You're so right. I guess I should update to the placement spotlight. This is an interesting segment though, because I
Yeah.
think it kind of is a twofold thing. Like you mentioned, this is not just reflective of our internal numbers. Oftentimes it
Mhm.
reflects what's happening to the market at large. So it can kind of serve as like a talent insights in many ways too. But for the purpose of today's show, we're doing a placement spotlight.
I know we mentioned on our February like placement recap, we mentioned for our January placements that it was a really big month for us. Like
Mhm.
January, we started off 2024 pretty insane. Honestly, I'd say February really followed in January's
I
footsteps pretty
agree.
closely. We actually saw a really similar amount in terms of what we brought in billing wise, with a slight downtick in the number of placements. So similar in terms of like billing, but a little bit less actual placements.
Right. Yeah. I know we were looking at these numbers pretty closely. And kind of digging
Yeah.
into the data for folks that are maybe curious, like what that could mean, because it's interesting, right? If you haven't had a chance to look at the same data set that we did, I wonder why
Yeah.
that could be.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the easiest assumption is that we've been working on higher level, more senior positions with higher base salaries, right?
Hmm.
So that's going to mean maybe less number of candidates placed, but higher amount of billing overall. It's a pretty good indicator that we just saw an uptick also in consulting placements. So yeah, a few different areas, but I think, overall, as we kind of break down this data, we'll highlight a few placements and you'll see that a lot of those were pretty high level placements.
Exactly. Yeah. And speaking of kind of highlighting things, this graphic really shows a breakdown
Yeah.
of what areas we placed talent in the last months. It's the same breakdown that we showed, obviously, for January, different percentages here. So, why don't you kick us off just with go to market overall themes that you saw for February?
Yeah, kicking off with go to market, like we can see, we actually saw a pretty, I don't want to say like the majority, but pretty high percentage of our placements
Hmm.
on the go to market side. And again, just to, if you're new here, our go to market recruiting team places, mostly sales and marketing professionals. So still a great month. We followed the trend exactly that I mentioned before of, higher billing and maybe a few less placements. So we saw a few less placements, but actually overall, like a 17.5% increase in overall billing. Hopefully I did that math right, but
I believe
but
in
yeah,
you. The math
yeah,
is mathing.
math be mathin'. With that, like I think I mentioned again, just the increase in billing probably means higher level roles. So just to give you an idea, in February, we placed about 5 enterprise account executives. And again, we work on everything from like SDR positions to like enterprise AEs, VP of sales. We have a CRO search going on right now. So seeing that we placed like 5 enterprise account executives, it's no surprise that our billing went up because obviously those folks, their base salary is much higher than some of the entry level sales roles that we place. So yeah, little insight into the go to market side. I'm curious. I know you're our corporate functions queen. Um, Take us to the corporate function side a little. Tell us what you saw there in February.
For sure. Well, corporate functions has remained one of our steadiest functions over the past year, and we're continuing to see that trend, obviously, through February. For folks that are unfamiliar with what corporate functions is comprised of, think all things HR, DEI,
Mhm.
administrative functions, and of course, finance and accounting roles too. So, as we get through the first quarter, we're actually wrapping up a busy season for accounting professionals. So, we're starting to see a slow increase in placements across accounting roles, definitely an uptick in the need for accounting positions in general. So interested to see what that results in for March. And of course, we're continuing to see an emphasis on your true HR generalist positions. That's been kind of tried and true for us through the past year. Definitely the case in January, but we're starting to see those slight sprinkles of some of your more nuanced or specialized roles too. So again, following the same trend as, go to market, we saw a lot of high level positions getting filled in February, which I think helps with what we were seeing there.
I get excited for you guys when like busy season is over for accountants because I feel like
You and me
you know,
both.
God bless all you finance and accounting recruiters. It's got to be really tough.
I don't know how we do it, but we do it. We keep it going. And
We do.
just like we keep it going, why don't you keep us going with tech?
I will keep us going. If you've been a part of our show for a while, Ryan and I are not your tech gurus, but we are data gurus, so we can certainly look at the data. So I mean, I think across tech, like we've talked about it just being like a challenging area the past few months. There have been a lot of layoffs in the space, but we're still moving pretty steadily. We kind of want to highlight because there were a few placements with this one client. We've been doing a really large scale engagement with Big Master Car for well, actually, I'd say like years we've worked with them, but this pretty
Mhm.
large scale engagement right now. So a lot of those numbers, that you're seeing that percentage, you know, a few placements there contributed to just the increase in the overall percentage of placements compared to January. So yeah, moving on to tech. Do you want to finish us off with the real estate practice?
I can take us home with that for sure.
Beautiful.
So, we've continued to see really strong activity. We've talked about it being a really turbulent market in real estate over the years. So, it's
Yeah.
great to see that we continue to see, some stability from that side of the business. And I think, what we saw specifically in February was really just very high level roles with one
Yeah.
client in particular. Our real estate team placed a VP, a superintendent, a director of pre-construction. So we're seeing definitely like the increase and uptick in these higher level positions. That's definitely been evident with our real estate practice for sure. So
Yeah.
great to see that.
Yeah, that was all just with one client too. I feel
Just
like,
one
they've
client.
done a lot of other higher level things, but we noticed that was all one client. So go real estate.
Exactly.
Awesome stuff.
Absolutely. And
And I think it's always good to keep in mind too. I know like that real estate number like looks small in terms of the percentage of our overall placements at Hirewell, but it's always I think important for the viewers to keep in mind our real estate practice at Hirewell actually like the number of folks on that practice is a lot
one of
smaller.
our smaller practices.
So kind of pound for pound, right? Like
Yep.
relatively, like they're doing a whole large chunk of business.
They
They're
definitely are,
yeah,
for
pretty
sure.
steady.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to remind folks of them. And of course, for people that are unfamiliar with Hirewall and what we do, we work on a nationwide basis. So you're not just
Mhm.
seeing these numbers reflective on the West Coast or in
Right.
Chicago where our headquarters are. This is work that we're doing across the US.
Yep.
So it's really exciting. And that's why when we say a lot of our numbers reflect what's going on in the actual labor market, it's because that's what our work is doing. It's reflective of what we're seeing across the US. Last month we talked about where numbers were at in terms of new jobs added across the US in January, unemployment
Mhm.
rates. Haven't been able to find those solid numbers quite yet to share them today. I know that we'll be getting a report from the labor market soon enough
Yeah.
to be able to talk about that stuff. So we'll probably hit on it next week if all of that information is out there. I think it'll be interesting to see in terms of comparisons, like where January ended up, where
Absolutely.
February compares, and hopefully give us an idea of maybe what we can start to, I don't know, hypothesize what March may look like.
Yeah, and like being like a full week into March, I feel like, we could probably make some predictions just at least for
Mhm.
like, what things look like internally. I'd say things are still moving pretty steadily. I think my prediction, like we'll probably see a slight downtick in the number of placements for March. Um, and I don't think that that number will be crazy low, just a downtick because January and February were so crazy in terms of
Yeah.
like number of placements. So I think, we always talk about recruiting being pretty cyclical and it's a roller coaster and wouldn't it be nice if we were just like this? But
Nice.
I'd say
Predictable.
so far for the quarter, for the year, January and February have been like this. And like there's
Mhm.
going to be a point where I think things will kind of start to level out.
Yeah, they will for sure. We'll keep an eye on it and obviously keep everyone updated on what we see.
Absolutely. Well, so fun to go through. I feel like it's great to be able to take a look at the prior month and make these predictions and we'll see if we're right. I'm always
Yeah,
curious.
let's see. We'll adjust on this. We'll talk about it again. See how we
You know we
landed.
will. You know we will. Anything else today?
I think that's it. Feel free to take us home.
I will take us home. That is a wrap for this week's episode of the Hirewell Update. Thank you all so much for joining us. As a reminder, you can find all of our content at talentinsights.hirewell.com. Or if you'd like to learn more about Hirewell and our service offerings, you can check out our website. It's www.hirewell.com. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, around noon Central. We'll see you then.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.